Peace, peace.
Peace, G, peace.
Welcome to another live streaming edition here of Beyond the Veil, an unusual podcast. I'm your host, the J Hawk, the Blu-ray J. Your co-host, the Black Sun Shaman, the Poetic Prophet, and the Beyonder of the Realms. Thanks for joining us today.
Namaste, everybody. Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's talk about this light.
Without further ado, what's happening, my brother?
Man, it's on. Everything is happening all at once, and I'm purifying my focus so I can get to my perfected resonance.
Indeed, that's more than a mouthful. Yeah, man, it's a lot. There's a lot going on, and we got to stay focused, man. You know, on that work.
Because we ain't the only ones focusing out here. It's a couple of other organizations out here that have discovered the power and focus and utilize it in every way they can. All the time.
Around the clock. Around the clock. You better believe it, man. So what do we have for the people today, man? Well, we've been discussing a whole lot of things over the past
indeed.
many weeks and several days, multiple hours, and even into the early morning light at times.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So we can hit any angle you want to start with. I want to defer to you today. You mentioned something several weeks ago, and we, through some technical difficulties and mishaps, weren't able to catch up with one another timing wise, schedule wise. So let's get in it. Piezo-electricity, the piezo-electric breath, the importance of the electric body. And
well, piezoelectricity is the electricity that comes from material, and if in material with a load on it, and you can take electricity from that. So for instance, if you take a crystal when in your lighter, when you hear that when you take those grill lighters that got the trigger on it, and when you hear that click, what's happening is a piezoelectric reaction on crystal. They have a small piece of crystal in there. They apply the pressure. When the piezoelectricity sparks, the lighter fluid catches it, and that's what makes your flame. So piezoelectricity is another example of piezoelectricity. When you're walking on sand, because of the almost crystalline-like form of sand, and there's also other electric substances that formulate sand. But when a person steps on sand, it produces a piezoelectric effect. The pressure going down on the crystals produce a piezoelectric effect. So when a person is walking down the beach, they can walk farther than they could walking down the concrete. And that has to do with the fact that they're accumulating piezoelectricity. And so
okay. Yeah, I definitely understand that. I was watching a video a couple hours ago, and I wanted to share. We could kind of share our reaction. We could jump in on certain points or what have you. It's a very short video, but this is not produced by myself or Brother T. We just want to use it for reactionary purposes, fair use, and all of that. This is on YouTube already, and let's see here. You will see here shortly who is the producer of said work. Let's see here. Yeah, let's bring it back to where we can see. Oh, well, let's see. I might need to. Yeah, okay. But yeah, basically what you were just describing. Steve Mold. You know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he got a grill lighter in his hand. Yep. Yep.
It's quite hard work. Like, it's not like pressing the button on a remote. When you press down on the trigger of a barbecue lighter, you'll notice it's quite hard work. Like, it's not like pressing the button on a remote control. You actually have to put some effort into it. And there's a reason for that. When you press down on the trigger, you're working against quite a stiff spring, so that all that work you do is stored as potential energy in the compressed spring. And in front of that spring is a tiny hammer, so that when the mechanism finally gives way and the spring is released, all that potential energy stored in the spring is turned into kinetic energy in the hammer. The hammer then strikes a special kind of crystal called a piezo-electric crystal. And when you hit one of these, it generates a voltage across the crystal. This is the inside of a barbecue lighter. This is the mechanism that houses the spring and the hammer and the crystal.
Did you want to expound on that? You sound like you were about to say chime
no.
in.
No, I was just going to point out that your spine has different spine compression. You know what I mean? Your spine has different vertebrae, and those vertebrae have spaces in between them. And if you jump, then there is a piezoelectric effect in the bones. Piezoelectric bones are piezoelectric in their nature as well, due to the way that I think it's the way that the collagen and the muscle fibers meet. When there's a load placed on your bones, it also produces an electrical or a piezoelectrical effect, the same way that this grill lighter does. And then I'll leave that there for now. But yeah, that was all I wanted to add on.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I could see how that would have a similar effect, a similar dynamic in place.
These two wires are coming off the crystal and they're drawing that voltage up to the top of the lighter here. There's still a gap between the two wires at the top here, but the voltage that you produce when you press down on the piezoelectric crystal is so high that electricity can actually jump across that gap, producing a spark. If you send a flammable gas up to the top as well, then the spark will ignite the gas. For a while now, I've wanted to understand how the piezoelectric effect works on the molecular level, and I finally do. And I've also built something to make it easy for anyone to understand how it works. So that's what this video is about. There's a few different types of piezoelectric crystal that you can buy, but I'm going to look at quartz in particular, which is the first piezoelectric crystal to ever be discovered. This is what a giant quartz crystal looks like. If you were to take a slice of quartz away from this crystal and compress it, you'd be able to measure a voltage across the slice, but you'd have to slice it at just the right angle like this. I don't know if this is the right angle, but it'd be something like that, and it's got to be just right. And to see why you've got to get the angle just right, we need to look at the lattice structure of quartz. So quartz is made of silicon dioxide, so it's silicon and oxygen, and this is what it looks like. At first, it looks like quite a complicated structure, but as you rotate the crystal, you find these symmetries like this one.
And we're back.
Okay, I just want to say, I'm reading this from Google. This is bone piezoelectric quality of bones, because when he was explaining that, and then he went into the fibers and how the fibers were collecting, then it's the same as the biological mechanism for bones. They have a fluid condenser and fibers which act as wires to conduct the electricity once the piezoelectric effect is implemented. Like once the bone has a weight on it, those fibers collect it, and then the collagen stores it like a battery. So I'm just going to read this because they say it better than I do. So I'm going to read this.
Okay.
It said, yes, bones have piezoelectric properties, which means they can convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. This is due to the structure of collagen and a fiber-like protein that makes up a large part of bones and cartilage. Cartilage is this is the part that matches his structure. Collagen has a highly oriented pattern structure and has the ability to respond to mechanical loads that cause it to generate a piezoelectric charge when its fibers slip past each other and under stress. This can happen during physical activities like walking, stretching, or climbing. So if you notice, when you work out sometimes afterwards, it ain't no sleep. You're wired afterwards. You would think that you were tired from exhausting yourself, but second wind is what they call it. That's what they say. They say you hit your second wind. What the second wind actually is the accumulation of the piezoelectricity that came from the weight load on the bone matter. And there's also other things that it could be. It could also be your blood moving. That has a piezoelectric quality because your blood is a crystalline form all itself. So when your blood is flowing and your blood is flowing fast, it also has a piezoelectric quality. So your blood going faster and working out, and that weight you put on your bones increases your energy instead of decreasing it. So you work out and then you're ready to go.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So now that makes sense, man. Wow. So what happens? I wonder. Years ago, I discovered a supplement that is now kind of catching on in popularity for another use of it that I had discovered just trying to figure my own body out, right? So dealing with things like high blood pressure. When I worked out, of course, I had better control over my blood pressure, but especially when I used anything that enhanced the production of nitric oxide in the bloodstream. So what do you have any idea, like what effect nitric oxide would have in that process of the crystallization process, you said, within the blood and the expansion of the use of the energy?
I'm not sure how the nitrous oxide affects it. I know that it's a flammable gas, but I don't know how that
not nitrous, nitric.
Okay.
Oxide. Yeah.
Oh, nitric. I thought you said nitrous oxide.
Yeah,
I was
not
like
NOS. Yeah, not NOS. NOx. Not NOS, NOS, but NOx.
No, I don't know what effect that has in the physical mechanism. That's an interesting discovery to make. But you spoke on something earlier, and then I want to address it.
Okay.
You talked about the fibers for the can you talk about the fibers for the third, and then there go the fibers. Can you talk about the fibers for the third eye and the potential effects that they have? I know you wanted to address that.
I think that was possibly you and Brother Limba that were discussing.
Oh,
but yeah.
Okay, I'll just touch it real quick. So when you breathe in, yogins do this stuff where they talk about chi. Chi is a form of energy. It's a form of electrical energy. With the expanding of your lungs comes a certain level of piezoelectricity. But when you breathe in and you breathe into your diaphragm, if you feel your diaphragm and feel your lungs, and then you crunch, for lack of better terminology. I'm just using crunch because I don't know what the actual word for it is. But if you take in the air, you fill your diaphragm and your lungs up with air, and then you do a crunch, there'll be a sound in your ear. It'll doom. It's just a little small doom that you'll hear. And you can close your mouth, close down the ear part, and then crunch, and you'll hear that sound. What that sound you're hearing is the air traveling up into the I forget the name of the cavity, but there's a cavity up here. It's traveling up into the cavity. The cavity has hairs within it that move when the wind comes past it. So it produces an electric pulse at the top of the brain where the Christos oil, anointing oil, are when a person raises in consciousness, they come up here and there's a spark created there from breath. If you hold your breath and activate that spark by disturbing those electrical microfibers that are within the I forget the name of the cavity, but the Christ cavity, for lack of better terminology.
Christ fibers. So you got me thinking in terms of fiber optics, and
which is the fastest form of information transference. Yeah. Yep.
So okay. Let's listen to some more. Let's see how he explains these. What he came up with here.
Here's another
apparatus.
But there's one particular angle that I'm interested in, which is this one. Notice this hexagonal shape here. It's actually a spiral going into the screen, but for simplicity, we're going to think of it as a ring. So these three crunchy peanut butter lids represent silicon atoms, and these three smooth peanut butter lids represent oxygen. So when you compress a crystal of quartz, you're squishing these hexagons. But crucially, the bond between oxygen and silicon isn't quite even. Like, the oxygen is a bit more aggressive in the way it holds onto its electrons. So the oxygens are a little bit negatively charged and the silicons are a little bit positively charged. So think about where the average of all the positive charge is in this diagram. It's a bit like the center of mass, but it's the center of charge. So it's there in the middle between these three silicon atoms.
Do you see
is that an upper and lower facing pyramid?
The crystal.
Do you see the hexagram?
That's
what I was getting ready to say.
But they don't move vertically. And the bottom.
I literally was just about to say, do you see the hexagram?
Yes, it looks like an upward and downward facing pyramid, and we know that the pyramids. What are they called though? I shouldn't be calling them pyramids. What's their real name?
Merkut.
The Merkut have a upward and downward facing Merkut in them. So when you're looking at this, and it has a piezoelectric quality, you've heard speculative theories that it was that the Merkut was a energy producing building. Well, now we're looking at the science for that. Just interestingly enough,
they just gave it a Greek adaptation in translation. The pyramid, the fire at the median point, and the median point is created by the intersection between the upward facing Merkut and the downward facing Merkut. It's interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Silicon moves upwards. So the average position of these three positive charges moves upwards slightly. And similarly, think about the average position of the three negative charges. Look, the two side negative charges move outwards, but that top negative charge moves downwards. So the average of the three negative charges moves downwards. So when you compress a crystal of quartz in this exact orientation, you're slightly shifting all the negative charges in one direction and all the positive charges in the other direction. Suppose you've got a square slice of quartz crystal. Let's represent all the positive charge as gold and all the negative charge as red. And in an uncompressed crystal, those negative charges and positive charges overlap exactly. And so you've got this neutral greenish color. But when you compress the crystal, the negative charges shift in one direction and the positive charges shift in the other direction. In the bulk of the crystal, it's still neutral overall. But at the faces, you've got this buildup of positive and negative charge. If you then wire up the...
Go ahead, my brother.
Oh no, he's about to address it. When I was looking at this, I was reminded of Ptah's staff. And I was reminded of how the Ankh works. You know what I mean? So if I was looking at the the two arms that come out on the Ankh,
Mhm.
and then that arch up at the top. If there was any space or a crystal placed in that arch up at the top, this motion right here, grabbing the top of Ptah's staff, should produce a piezoelectric charge to the staff itself. So if you're walking with it, consistent basis, if it had an energy system that would allow it to store, then just the energy from you walking would produce an electrical current that could be stored within that staff, just based on what I'm seeing here. And interestingly enough, at the bottom of Ptah's staffs, he has a fork that could be put in the ground that would be a grounder to this. So it would be it could potentially build up your energy. That's all. I'll just,
because you would have the bottom portion of it that is a charger point that could be stuck into a port of sorts, and then the handle, if your hand is wrapped in it, you're compressing, you're creating that pressure. If you're holding it, even from the staff portion of it, for lack of a better explanation, if you were waving it, if you're twirling it, it would still be charging. But yeah, absolutely, I get where you're coming from with that. Wow, this is very, very interesting.
Well, the positively charged face will be trying to pull electrons towards it from inside the wire, and the negatively charged face will be repelling electrons. And if you bring the ends of those wires close enough together, the electricity will be able to jump the gap, producing a spark. So that's how quartz is piezoelectric. Wow. But in general, any crystal can be piezoelectric so long as it fulfills a couple of criteria. The first one is that the lattice needs to contain some polar bonds. That just means that some of the atoms end up with a slight positive charge and some of the atoms end up with a slight negative charge, like silicon and oxygen in quartz. That's why diamond isn't piezoelectric. You can squeeze a diamond as much as you like, but all the carbon atoms inside are neutral, so there's no charge for you to move around. The second criteria is more subtle. It's to do with symmetry. The crystal needs to have a certain type of symmetry, or more accurately, a lack of a certain type of symmetry. Take a look again at this hexagonal arrangement of atoms from the quartz
Now he
crystal.
says it's a hexagon.
Look at this silicon atom, and then draw a line through the central point to the opposite side and see what's there. It's not another silicon atom, it's an oxygen atom. So there's something different on the opposite side when you go through the central point. That means it doesn't have point symmetry. To see why a lack of point symmetry is important, look at this arrangement of atoms that does have point symmetry. See how silicon atoms are opposite silicon atoms, oxygen atoms are opposite oxygen atoms. When you compress the crystal, you move the charges symmetrically, so the average position of those charges doesn't change. It stays in the middle. The piezoelectric effect has a lot of uses besides just a high voltage power source, like in a barbecue lighter. It can also be used as a sensor. This is a piezoelectric disc. It's probably not quartz. It'll be something else. And if I press down on the disc, I can get a bit of a voltage across it. It's sensitive enough to be used as a pickup for sound. So I can actually use it as a microphone.
It's not a great microphone, but it is a microphone.
No offense, but if you still think stocks, real estate, or crypto are the best passive income...
Interesting.
So if piezoelectricity is produced upon the pressure of a crystal in these two different, that same design he has.
Yeah.
If you put on a magnetic, what do you call that? A magnetic rotation. If you place magnets far enough from each other to create a pull, and you started a spin, then if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to have to look into this further. This is a speculative theory. That should be infinite energy production. I mean, very simple.
I was pretty much there.
I mean, a simple version of a free electric. It wouldn't even. It's not even. Yeah.
I feel like Kevin Hart on that one video with
Oh,
What's the
yeah,
thing?
yeah. I know what she said? She said, "Has anybody ever offered you money to do
She's like,
something and then you didn't want?"
she said, "Oh, they're here. They're in the room." He's like,
Right, right.
I like you. Don't do this. Don't do this. I'm sorry. A little funny moment. Yeah, but yeah, yep. Essentially, you could see the principle being put into action on that front.
Now wait. They do have an explanation of what do they call that? They call the prehistorical or the pre-technological advanced society. Where they had the buildings that had the electric tops, and they did the World Fair and all of that.
Tartaria, right? The Tartarian. Yeah.
Tartaria. The buildings were supposed to have these electrical currents that they were utilizing as well. Now, we talked earlier when we were speaking privately of Mercury. You know what I mean? And Mercury's movement capability. So, due to frequency. So even if you didn't have magnets, if you had the frequency that put Mercury on the move, and it's a solid. So if you ran it past and it would touch all over it. If you ran it past a piezo-electric crystal and you kept that running, it would do nothing but boom, 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 electric, and that's what they had in the top of them buildings in Tartaria. They had Mercury. The Mercury was moved out of the tops of the buildings.
Yes, and especially if they were struck by lightning, and then, I mean, that was almost predictable. Not almost; it was inevitably predictable, especially during certain times of those seasons, etc. You know, I would imagine with the use of even something like a tool like the Farmer's Almanac, you could inevitably discover a pattern of when those things would be more likely, right? In order to take advantage of, the access to the resource freely. It wouldn't have to be something that ran without the necessity just because, right? It could be something that you only did when it came around that you needed to, for example.
You know what? And thinking about this from a God perspective, if God is energy, if God is energy, okay, then you know how when we exert excessive amount of energies, we find ourselves in better health, we find ourselves in better energetic vibrations, we find our bone structure better, we find our ligament structure better, depending on the consistency of creating this piezoelectric experience. Well, could that be because we're getting closer to God?
Could be.
And so we're coming into a more perfected state of existence as we increase the energy. And then just a thought too, if thought produces electricity, which we know the left and right hemisphere of the brain produces electrical pulses with thought. So that too has the potential to increase our energy, but they've been the reason for programming that to the extent that they do TV programming, religious programming, school programming, all mind programs, government. I'm not. Let's not say that. Let's say there are governmental programs that implement this type of information that keeps you thinking in a certain way. And that becomes our experience. You know what I mean? That becomes what we overall experience. If it's energy, is our energy going to that? When we're thinking about whatever Megan Thee Stallion's newest record, and then people start to take on the behavioral patterns that she has us thinking about and repeating. Is that just due to the fact that it's trending, or is that due to the fact that it's an electrical, well, you know this, Jay, an electrical matrix that we're in? You know what I mean? So it could be charging those situations up, for lack of better terminology.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. I'm gonna let him finish up so we can finish this reaction portion, and we're gonna get into some more interesting
video. I mentioned how
information.
Speakers can be used as microphones, and microphones can be used as speakers, and it's true of this piezoelectric microphone. It can be used as a speaker.
It's not a great speaker, but it is a speaker.
When you apply a voltage across a piezoelectric crystal, it will deform. It's the opposite of the piezoelectric effect. My absolute favorite example of the use of the piezoelectric effect is in the quartz watch. Inside one of these watches, there's a tiny crystal of quartz that vibrates exactly 32,768 times per second. If you know your powers of 2, then that might sound familiar. But why? Well, this video is already getting too long, so my next video is going to be about the amazing mechanism inside a quartz watch. If you want to make sure you definitely see that video, then don't forget to subscribe. If you super want to make sure, then consider clicking the notification bell. This video was made possible by my patrons on Patreon and CuriosityStream, a subscription streaming service of over 2,000 documentaries and non-fiction titles, including some...
Shout out Steve Mold. Shout out Steve Mold.
Yes, check him out. Check him. Jay, if he get to that watch and he say something about the watch using a microfiber to pick up the resonance of that crystal, if that crystal is resonating at 32,000 frequency, 32,000, what do you call that? Oscillations or whatever, it's 32,000. If you get a small enough microfiber to pick up the movement, then you should be able to keep the watch ticking indefinitely, as long as it doesn't disconnect from the microfiber doesn't wear out.
I see where you're going with this. And so we could be looking at devices of great importance that have the simplicity of production of a toy.
Big facts. Big facts.
Get unlimited access to all of that for as little as $2.99 a month. And for you fine people, a 30-day free trial if you go to curiositystream.com. Great collection. Like if you want to learn about, recommend those when you first sign up for your 30-day
go into that. You gotta check.
No, I don't think. Yeah, he's gonna go into that
on his own, y'all. But yo, dope information. Very interesting, universal applications across the board for those of you who are imaginative, creative folks. Play with it, man. Play with it. I encourage that. I endorse the playing with that science.
Your eye boogers are crystals.
Hilarious, but absolutely factual.
Your blood and the minerals within your body have piezoelectric qualities.
Indeed, they do.
So,
indeed, they do.
Credo Matois, Jay, Credo Matois said in his initiation process, one of the initiators who was leading him told him to jump up and down until he exhausted himself, and then when he exhausted himself, to keep on going and do not stop. Okay, so he did it. He exhausted himself. He pushed past his exhaustion. Then he said he had a break in consciousness that caused his consciousness to expand substantially and his level of awareness to be interconnected to the unified field as he continued. He didn't use those words, but that's what he explained occurring. if just in light of our current discovery of piezoelectricity with the bones, jumping up and down is going to produce piezoelectricity. You consistently keep on piezoelectrically pushing yourself, then just like a light bulb that increases visibility with more energy, it could be the same way for your consciousness. A light bulb goes on, you know what I mean, for lack of better terminology, and you're able to more clearly have awareness because of the piezoelectricity amounting and storing up to the point that it makes you a more powerful person, or it expands your awareness. There's Credo McQuarrie.
Shout out, rest in peace, rest in power.
Rest in power. Rise in power. Yeah.
Yes, so he was a griot, which is, for those of you who are unaware, an oral historian, a tribal historian. The Zulus, in case y'all are into Christianity or anything of the like, you come across the terms within the Book of Enoch Watchers. The Zulu are one of the groups of watchers. Not only that, but that's one of their functions. Zulu Anawesi, travelers from beyond the stars, still traveling. Yes, you've seen his Masonic necklace. If you didn't, go look it up. I'm not going to play with certain images right now. This is high season for some things happening. So, but yeah, rest and rise in power to Credo Mutua. You know, check it out, man. He has a lot of insight. Still does. He's not dead. He's transitioned. You know, we'll put it that way. He's moved on, but he comes from a long line of carriers of that information and those light codes.
Oh, and then just interestingly enough, you said he didn't pass, he transitioned. Check out the weight that leaves the body at death. That's something interesting to look up when you get a chance. Yeah, that's something interesting to look up, y'all. Check out the weight that leaves the body at death.
Absolutely. So, you want to transition into thought forms?
Yeah, that's a good
singular focused thought and the manifestation of thoughts into a physical material reality.
Yeah, we can. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay. All right. So there is a connection with all of this, y'all. I mean, you can dig into it further on your own time, of course, in your own way, absolutely as well. But so thought forms. I'm gonna let you go into a little bit of your explanation for thought forms, form energy.
Okay.
They're one and the same.
I'll give you two examples, cultural examples. They have tubals in Indian culture, dot in the forehead Indian. And then they have golem in Jewish, capital ISH. Okay. Jewish people have golem. Okay. And so the tubal, if you give a thought form energy long enough, just like we are a bioelectrical organism, it will begin to get the vital energy necessary for it to be a semi-living organism in accordance with the dot in the forehead Indian projection of tubal thoughts. So let's give an example that is near and dear to everyone's heart. Well, no, let's not give that example because somebody might be disturbed.
Hey, this is
so let's say
beyond the veil.
well, let's just say it like this: any religion can give their thought energy to something long enough for it to exist on an through the accumulation of electrical energy to manifest it in an electrical matrix. Now, so that would mean that
Right.
if a group of people believed in Boobala, you know what I'm saying, and they kept on talking about Boobala, saying what Boobala did, you know what I mean, and telling what powers Boobala has, and when Boobala healed this person and that person, and so forth and so on. If they keep building the thought patterns of that, then that being will exist. They did some experiment. Jay, will you touch on the experimentation done to bring beings that weren't here through that what is that program they did?
Project Montauk.
Yep.
Project Montauk is one of them. I want to say the other, the Manhattan Project, but they were dealing with discoveries and machines that were invented by Nikola Tesla, and one was designed as a chair, and the concept that I came across was that this chair would stimulate through an electric spark an electric frequency change or that adaptation to activate latent abilities within the mind that were linked to what they call psychic transmission. So the subject or the controller, depending on how you look at it, sitting in this particular apparatus would be able to, by receiving this electric charge, would be able to bring into the material realm whatever it was they had imagined in their thoughts. So, for example, Loch Ness Monster. Another example, Yeti, or the abominable snowman of Asia. Another, Sasquatch, the northwestern territory of the United States. So they would imagine this thing, and then they would imagine a place where there were no people usually around, so that they could release that particular idea, golem, egregore, however you view it, thought being, into the realm of material and plane of material existence. So people haven't had these encounters, and of course that's why some people, you could say, possibly can't see them or will never interact with them, no matter how many times they enter those territories in those specific places. Maybe there is a link between the electromagnetic frequency of that person's thoughts or certain people's thoughts and those beings. And maybe they only exist within the framework of the thought process or thought ability of those beings. There's so many ways to.
And then somebody's going to be watching. They're going to be like, "Oh, that's just speculation." You know what I mean? Here, I want you to go look something up. You know what I mean? I want you to go find the monks that are called the happiest people in the world, because they produce within their medulla oblongata more activity than anyone else on the planet has ever been, monitored as producing that much activity in that part of the brain. And that has to do specifically with what they've developed as far as a meditation technique to build up that level of energy. So now they're happy to a level that we are even unaware of. Like, we cannot be as happy as them. We cannot be as happy as them without going through that meditative process that builds up the piezoelectricity necessary for them to be able to sustain that level of happiness. So, just states of consciousness directly result to electrical current. You know what I mean? Directly.
So, I mean, we're thinking, okay, let's think a little bit bigger, but more simplistic. cranial cavity, nasal passages. Certain breaths ignite and spark piezoelectrical responses. There are fibers in the nostrils. There are fibers throughout the brain. There is pressure. At times, our heads literally, you could feel the. And I learned a trick from not a YouTube short per se, but it was a short on one of social media. The guy showed you put your thumb at your cheekbone, and you take the other index finger and you push the nostril in. Breathe in, breathe out. It depressurizes the nasal cavity. Okay, and you can release pressure, air pressure, and fluid pressure within, this region of the face on either side. Now, sometimes that pressure might be too great to release it very easily. So you might have to do it over and over, or you may have to do some other additional things to get relief. But nonetheless, you can feel sensations. You can see light particles or what they call those black fuzzies. It just depends on what's going on when you get lightheaded. It has to do with your electrical spark, and it has to do with your breathing patterns. Go ahead. You look like you wanted to.
No, I just repeated lightheaded. Lightheaded.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually what happens is what a person will, they call pass out. You know what I mean? On the
Oh wait,
observation end is frightening, but that person might go into a state of consciousness where they needed to go instantly.
kind of like a person with epilepsy. What's happening with the person with epilepsy when they pass out into a seizure is there's an overproduction of electricity within their brain. So you'll see them when they're going out, because of my grandmother dealt with it. When she was getting ready to go out, I hate to say it like this, it's the death look. It's the death. There's when you see some of these, you can go watch the YouTube videos of some of the people that were playing on the football field and other fields that they were playing in, and they would pass away on the field. Like they would be standing up there playing soccer or whatever, and then they would just go out. But before they go out, the common thing to all of them was this look. They'll be like this, Jay. They'll do this right here. They'll be like
the death stare.
Yeah, the death stare. They'll go out, and then after the death stare, then they would go out. But again, electrical current bring you to a state of awareness that cannot be perceived by people who do not possess or have not built up that level of energy. That's what a real powerful person is. This financial means to measure a person's powerfulness, this stuff that they do to measure a person's powerfulness is not what a real powerful person is. A real powerful person is a person who uses their own electrical conductivity to create what they will. And others.
Indeed.
But whatever.
Indeed. Indeed. Wow. So I'm just looking at a book, sorry, and there's just so much. All right. So wow. Thought form. Another type of thought form, I'll put it this way. Let me try to my best to deal with the, as you put it, red dot or the Bharatan or Hindustani wisdom that has been utilized throughout time by different organizations. Okay, both secret and not so secret, but okay, the singular focus thought. I think you called it Tubal, right? It direct lines the mind to have control over the brain. Therefore, thoughts don't cease to occur in random order, but the mind is now in charge, commanding the brain to focus one thought at a time and put those thoughts in not a random order, but now in a logical successive order, in order to pull the thought of desire, or that will, the focused will of the individual, to bring that thought into form. Now, we do it without any control all of the time. And the way that it manifests, it'll be that supervisor that you can't stand. Why can't you stand them? If you really start to look within, you'll find that there's a part of you that you're suppressing, that you don't like, and that other people don't like when you have to manifest it. But that person is that thing all of the time when it comes to you. So they're directly linked to that lower vibrational thought energy that you have not faced within yourself and completely overcome. And so right at the moment where things will be blissful for you, that person will always, without fail, come to challenge you at your point of bliss. Another way it shows is the person that will represent another aspect of you that always has what you need. Man, I just thought about you, and you're calling me right now. Hey, man, listen, I didn't want to bother you because I don't want to call only when I need or want something, but I know that you have resources, and I just wonder, if you'd be able to help me out with something. And that person's like, sure, whatever it is, let me know how I can support you. It could be so many things. I'm just using those two extreme examples, but all of them come from the well within. All of them come from the well within. It's about you discovering more about yourself to find when those things typically, or those people that represent those, I don't want to say things, but those energies show up without fail. And then
I would like,
go ahead.
I would like to add on here just that. No, go ahead. Finish, and then I add.
Well, I mean, I pretty much stated it. It's just you can use so many examples, and every person has their own unique perception, right, of what things are. So you could, as an observer, if that person hasn't stepped into the observer stage of their own self-awareness, and you could say, oh, this is
Muji,
what that is.
Big shout out to Papa Muji as far as self-awareness. Big shout out to Papa Muji.
You could say to that person, yeah, no, that person's this to you. And they could say, no, I don't see it that way. Or no, it isn't. How you going to tell me? They can go to that far extreme. And all you can do is this motion right here. Because you're turned over to your own will.
Okay.
Every person's responsible for their own will. I can't put my will and impose my will upon you. I can suggest, I could even manipulate if you allow it, and it could be all in a good way. That's what hypnosis, suggestive, what is it called? Suggestive reasoning, or suggestive programming. Those all those things can be used for either or, positive or negative, or even in between, just because that person is individually trying to gain something out of that interaction.
That mechanism was hijacked from us, and that mechanism is called imagination. We were driven away from it past the child state and told that in our adult state that we should not be operating in our imaginative functioning to a high level degree. Here's something interesting to note, though. If you look at occult societies, if you look at esoteric portions of religion, they will, especially esoteric Christianity or Rosicrucianism or whatever you want to call it. If you, So here's a take. I'm going to help you to operate in control over it by giving you some techniques, some imaginative techniques. First, you have one pointedness of mind. Take an object. Set an object in front of you if you have to have a physical object. Some of us don't need a physical object. We got imagination faculties that we've been using, so we can use them to imagine an object. But some people need a physical object. So take something, you know what I'm saying? Set it in front of you. Look at it and don't let your mind wander. There's nothing there but this bottle. The color of the bottle, the top on the bottle. But don't let your mind leave the bottle. The point is to get you to be able to hold the focus long enough to accumulate energy into the thought. That is the basis. That is the reason for one-pointedness of mind meditation. Now, there's another technique where you begin to work on colors. You begin to work on smells. You begin to work on touches. And you get them in your mind so clear that if you think of a red polyester sweater, then you can feel that polyester. You can see that red color of the polyester. You can dag near smell the fabric, give the polyester, you know what I mean, red thing, and you have it so vividly in your imagination. That is how you utilize your piezoelectric and your left and right hemisphere electric pulses to create your own experience, as opposed to it being utilized without your consciousness to create someone else's.
Interesting. Absolutely. Enoch. Okay. Thanks for joining us, Enoch. Absolutely. So you said I am powerful. Indeed you are. Indeed you are. Yeah, man, so everything from
let me hit from you are powerful beyond measure. Your electrical body, your light body produces amounts of electricity that can change the entire matrix. If your light shine bright enough for others to be able to have the choice to follow their own light, then we would be way too bright for any low vibrations to have control of our electrical matrix experience.
And
you're powerful.
Another interesting thing is thoughts in and of themselves intend and desire to radiate and reproduce themselves.
Yes.
Whether they're of a light or dark, positive or negative nature is not really relevant, except for in the outcome may not be your desired outcome at that time. So trial and error, just like anything else, is required in order to master those processes of thinking and controlling what you think. I mean, you're going to have thoughts, receive thoughts that are not radiated from your highest good or others' highest good. It's going to happen. But if you replace them, reprogram by replacing, push them out. Any bad habits you want to quit, you have to replace it, or you will be back to that because it's become your crutch for so long. And I mean, we've all had them. We don't all keep them, but we've all had them. We've don't
all... let no mammy mentality or no slave hand mentality.
Watch out there now.
Keep you from operating in your own vibratory field. What I mean is, don't let people talk you out of being yourself because they not they self, or they operating in something outside of they self. Because then you just gonna give your power away again. You get your power back to let somebody say, "Oh no, you better get back in line." "Oh no, you better get back in linear equations." "Oh no, you better get back in time." "Oh no, you better get." You know what I'm saying? Don't let people do that to you. You are,
or you have jumped beyond circular reasoning, sir. So you have lost your natural mind. Yes, I have, and I've put on the mind of Christ. Because Christ did not get caught up in circular reasoning with those who were, like you put it.
He would tell him, "I got enough mental capability to see your thoughts." You're lying, dude. I can see it.
Yeah.
I have enough of my mind to be able to have perceived it enough that I can tell your mental frequency as well. Because I've studied myself enough to know. Empath's biggest problem is that they cannot differentiate their own thoughts from someone else's. It's not until you have enough time with yourself that you can discover your own inner voice and differentiate it from others' inner voices. And when you do that, you're going to create some. You're not going to just be like, what do they call them? A yes. You're not going to be a yes man or a yes woman so easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, every thought that we have, man, it seeks to reproduce itself. I just want y'all to focus on that understanding, just that aspect of the understanding. And then you can move into the mental exercises of your own design that will best bring out your control over your thoughts. Because you have to really understand the mind is supposed to be the master of the brain. The brain is the master of the body. That's the hierarchy within self. If the brain supersedes the mind, the body is going to be out of alignment, because the brain is going to always choose the harder workload. The mind says, how can we circumvent that? How can we move around? Is there a way to avoid that? No, there isn't. We got to go through that. All right, cool. So let me condition myself to go through this. All right, brain, you're going to go on autopilot, because if you don't, you're going to fucking shut down. Body, just do what you think the brain would tell you to do, or what it told you last. Go through these motions. Get through it. Get stronger. Build the muscles up. Go ahead and use it for your benefit. Eat as best you can. Store it up, and then I'll tell you when to shut down. I'll tell you when to go to sleep. Okay? And we're going to sleep a lot during this season. That's what the mind will do. The brain will be like, I can't go to sleep because I got to figure out this problem. And if I go to sleep right now, somebody else is awake, and they're, you know, I can't be like, you know, I can't just desert my responsibilities and obligations. I have to do this and I got to do that. But man, that's not really fully physically possible.
Your subconscious mind, just to enlighten you, unless you, if in the case that you did not know, you may say something and have an understanding that your brain cannot wrap itself around because it doesn't have the capacity. It just needs to do. You understand what I'm your genetic information is so extensive that your brain does not have the capacity to hold it.
Absolutely. The brain is shedding cells like other parts of the body, externally and internally. It's building cells, it's shedding cells. And so at some point in time, you'll have more brain capacity than others, right? But the mind remains etherically the same. It's untouchable. It's untouchable. So when people say you lost your mind, no, they mean the connectivity between the brain and mind function has somehow been either temporarily or permanently detached or dissolved. And that's still a choice even in of itself. And it's really the brain usually trying to protect itself from what the mind is receiving. And what's the word?
Edgar Casey is a prime example of that. Yeah, the sleeping prophet. He's a prime example of that, because, you know, people be like, "Oh, these guys are talking crazy," but Edgar Casey is the predominant amount of healing medicines and surgical procedures that we still operate on today came from a dude who was sleep in a chair, mumbling,
or so they say,
or so they say, or he was tapping in and then using his expressive methods to not go by what the brain was formulating, but in a state where he was able to bypass the block, or bypass the lens that keeps the subconscious from being able to express itself completely on a consistent basis, because the mind always tries to interpret it. If the brain always tries to interpret it. If the mind says go over there and jump, it may know that it's piezo-electric sand over there. You know what I mean? That is gonna, but your brain is like, go over there and jump. Those people are gonna look at you funny when you go over there and jump. What are you jumping for? You know what I mean? Like
yeah, you know, so, and Edgar Casey is a fascinating case. But this is not to take away from Edgar Cayce either. You think about it. This is during the same time period of Eliphas, not Eliphas, excuse me. Let me pull that back. Levi H. Dowling, The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, Science of the Devil, Madam Helena P. Blavatsky. You had a lot of esotericists that were not afraid to speak their piece. And even though they didn't try to shake up the foundation within what we would call the status quo or orthodoxy, they coexisted at a time where movements were being raised up that were clearly controlled movements, right? Where entire populations within communities, especially those of color or of indigenous stock, were being brought into fringe doctrine religions. These people remain true in their esoteric value. Not saying that everyone should have been involved with what they were doing. I'm simply saying, wouldn't you find it interesting if it had been presented to you, not you, because I know you know, but to others, that at the same time that Sweet Daddy Grace, Father Divine, Robert Elijah Poole, what's my brother's? Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Rabbi Arthur Wentworth Matthew, Rabbi Josiah Ford, all of these men and some women, Annie Besant, like I said, Madam Helena B. Blavatsky, all of these people were out of the same schools of thought. And some of them represented darkness, and some of them represented light. What we missed was that they were all on a chessboard, and there was a fabulous display of 4 and 5D chess going on here, while governments were being established, reestablished, toppled, reconstructed. Transferred, transported, reset.
Yeah, they did use that. They said when people come to a level of consciousness for the reset, the explanation for these resets that we've experienced over time is when people came to the level of consciousness that they were using their own mind without the restrictive limitations to their divinity. They found themselves, in the midst of a reset. And so their brain power was redirected, and then a new power came into place. So they do that.
Might I just chime in on that too? This same time period, you had conflicts and wars that were not so well publicized, that were going on as and prior to major world wars, as they were calling them, were being staged. And by staged, I mean being established, set up, agreed upon, the terms being set in order, and the actions being set into motion. They're telling each other, and they're telling each other their plans. Like, we're going to move our ships out into this sea. And they're like, well, we're going to meet you there. And they're like, well, then we're going to also send some people on foot. They're going to come up through this mountain region. And they're like, no problem. We'll have people on horses and tanks. And they're like, oh, well, you're going to use tanks? Well, we have these ground missiles then. We have these little artillery shells that we're going to set off. And they're like, well, we're going to come with this battalion. And so it's all this happening while this person is saying, don't you know that you are God? And don't you know that you're God's chosen people? And this person's like, you should be reading the Quran. You should be understanding that there's no light except for this. And then there's this person saying, if you just tap into your inner belief with the power of the understanding of the name Jesus, all this is happening at the same time. Now look at where we are now.
In a world created by the suggestive programming.
So no wonder it repeats, because there's no new thoughts under the sun.
Wait, you mean that's why they keep playing that slavery stuff to us? Because they want us to use our mental power and our emotional power to create some slavery. Wait, modern day slavery still exists,
doesn't it? And don't they want us to re-enter into it on such a more heinous level that they're introducing a new population into this corporate environment, so that we either accept being don't say that. Okay. Accept being cut out of the picture or take part.
So wait a minute. Wait. So while we're entering the information age and everybody's sharing all of this information and we're coming into the utilization of our own electromechanisms, our tools, our creative tools, you mean to tell me that somebody is bringing people over here to set us an example of how to be a good slave and go to work every day so that we don't operate in it? Is that what you're saying?
Or are they saying shit or get off the pot? Because like I just said, if you want me to participate, now I have to consider, is my standard that I set forth against my prior oppressor really what I said it was, or do I now have to start a business so that I can have a new set of cheap labor employees to employ for myself? Well, I realized what the American dream really is, or will I continue to complain while I am erased by the new populace that is replacing the prior, like you said, population of citizens? Because what, after all, a citizen is a sanitized term for a slave. It's just like you get if you want to get the sanitized history of Dr. King, only go and learn about him during Black History Month and only watch the speeches that they play at the local theater or at your local auditorium in the church. But if you want to learn the unsanitized truth about King, you know, go in and read more than this, the biographies about him. Go and dig in to see, you know, what others' research has shown. What was the poor people's movement really about? Why would he say, you know, the things that he eventually came to, like we've integrated our people into a burning house? So to understand that the real man and his, I don't want to just say evolution, but his maturing started out with one thought process and evolved or grew into another thought process. So you know what I'm saying? So then we start to understand, like, oh, yeah, his parents came up during that era that I just described, where you had all of these leaders being raised up in their organizations and then sent out to the public to recruit.
Wait, a personal relationship with God?
If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. All this racism and blah, 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 blah. No, it's colorism. No, it's racism. You're a sellout for saying that. I'm a sellout because I won't acknowledge the fact that our people are color struck and that you actually believe that a political and social status pertains to a complexion. You actually bought into that. Interesting. Because
now, just to point out the mental power. Now people really do believe that they are Black without having Black skin. Do you get how crazy that is for somebody to say? Somebody walk up to you and say, "I'm Black." No, my shirt is Black.
Exactly. Who a relationship with yourself is to have a relationship with God. That is exactly what we're saying.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
If you have no love for yourself, you can't love your neighbor. You can't follow the first command. I don't care what your religion is, no disrespect, just saying. If you have no love for yourself, you can't love your neighbor as you love yourself, because you'll be providing your neighbor with something that you've never discovered for yourself. So it's not even there.
We're an evolving humanity. Well, let me not say humanity. We're evolving. And as we are evolving, our relationship to divinity is going to change, but the script is not. The scriptures will not. If they say don't pass one jot or tittle away, or it's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like you change this up in any way, it's a problem. But my world is changing, so why would my directives and behavioral patterns not change in accordance with the evolutionary path of the world that I'm in? So now, if God tells you, or your inner voice tells you, don't eat Oreos anymore, you know what I mean? Like, the world may say, I got a new brand of Oreos, the velvet ones. You know what I mean? Just to re-entice you into, I don't know how to explain it, re-entice you into being a people pleaser, for lack of better terminology. Being a people pleaser, even though you know better. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what other systems such as religion, schooling, and so forth can get you into. You can get into a place where you have come to know within yourself a truth.
Right.
And you've come to see that truth in the fullness of its expression outside of you. But the book says that this is not what you're supposed to be following. So you'll deny yourself, which God dwells in the temple of your body, even by that book standard. So you'll deny yourself or the God inside of you to follow some book, some
minor correction. The Bible, if that's what you're referring to, is not a book.
It's not,
even when I was a practicing Christian, this was an annoying fact that I had to point out. And when I say annoying, I mean it's gnawing, meaning it's once you know it, it should gnaw away at you. Okay.
Yeah.
It should let you know how little you actually know, even if you know that book cover to cover.
Yeah.
But it is a library. 66 books is not one book. And the only reason why the accounts of both dispensational periods were put, or multiple dispensational periods were put under one cover is thanks to a man named Jacob von Liebsfeld. He decided it would be a great idea to take the Old Testament and the Novum Testamentum and its new transliteration to put them under one cover. And it was a bestseller. I mean, it was great marketing. You know what I mean? Especially after the printing press made it accessible to the general public and not just the clergy. You know, but...
And then, I mean, interestingly enough, isn't the publishing company...
Zondervan?
Yeah, Zondervan.
Those...
They
that were without land, but gave a book or a collection of books in exchange for vital resources and a place to exist. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly. They literally gave us those books, and then we had the books and some whiskey, and they had the land and the guns.
Yeah.
That's literally what that means. But they told you in their name. I mean, you couldn't speak, I guess, what is it, Germanic? So didn't know Zondervan.
And then our concept of God and their concept of God is a completely different thing.
All you have to do is read their manifesto on, what do they call it? Divine Providence. When you read the three groups that set up what they call the founding fathers. Okay. Theists, deists, and atheists. I'm going to say it again. Theists, deists, and atheists. So when people say this is a Christian nation, where are you getting that from? A Republican rally?
No, they think that the in God we trust is a reference. They think that the in God we trust is a reference to a supreme being. They really genuinely think that. Is genuine in their mind. They're like, oh my God, see my government trusting God. And they hold up, they got the dollar and that's where they get their confidence from in that.
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, there was an article some years ago back by the Huffington Post that I recommend people go back and read. And it was about John Quincy Adams, because John Quincy Adams was the first president to bring the reminder that this was not a Judeo-Christian a creation, a government created to exemplify or enforce Abrahamic traditions, any of that. Okay. When you deal with theists, you have those who believe there is a God, and that God is in control of everything, and including the right to rule being a divine right that's handed down by God. When you deal with a deist is dealing with a person that believes that there's a supreme creator, but after that creator made everything, it left it up to us to seek out divine providence through our own individual will. And so
I'm a deist.
Power is not a gift. It is something that one must take if they seek to have it. Okay. Now, an atheist, by the religious definition, is a person that does not believe in the existence of a supreme creator or a divine being, right? However, when you look at the simple English, a being a prefix, theist dealing with the first definition that I just gave, you would basically be dealing with a person that believes that they are their creator, that they are that supreme being in some form, not saying that they believe that they are in that absolute form, of course, in flesh and blood, et cetera, but that they could be, if they so chose and became aware of how to maintain that state of being, right?
Or if they reach that level of power.
That's essentially right. That's what I'm saying. That
Energy.
level of power or gnosis of how to use the energy, essentially, that would be a possibility as opposed to an impossibility. But yeah. So you had these three groups of people, and they were the ones who compiled together. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endued by their creator with such certain unalienable rights. Yes, I said unalienable. Look into it. They didn't say unalienable. That's not a word. It's unalienable.
Wait. Is the God that they're talking about the God in the sky, or the one that's on the dollar?
Oh, they're talking about the one that they created as an egregore through groupthink in their think tanks that they have every year, like the Committee of 300 or the Bilderberg Group or the Council on Foreign Relations or the International Monetary Fund.
Yep, there you go.
Control a trust run by what they call Government Ordnance Department. Shout out
Government
for bringing that back to the forefront.
Wait. Government Ordnance Department. Government Ordnance Department. So the first letters of each one of those is G-O-D. Is this the God that they're referring to?
Correct. That's the God in which they trust. They created a trust under that title. A public trust, no less. That, of course, all of the QSIP numbers would be connected to through regional proof of birth, certificate.
So keeping us from remembering our estate has left it in limbo, and then
unclaimed in most instances. Correct.
So, funny joke. So, a person without land is in purgatory.
They would also be a villain.
A villain in purgatory.
Waiting for a hero or a savior. And again, the master teacher of his day said that salvation is of the Jews. It's of the Jews. Salvation also is tied to a word that is utilized a lot in the Old Testament, redemption. And to redeem is to salvage, and to salvage would deal with a ship that's lost at sea and probably sunken with its valuables still intact.
So let the redeemed
of the Lord
say so.
Say so.
Oh, let the redeemed of the Lord say so. So wait a minute. vibratory frequency, inner energy
Yeah,
being expressed outwardly
indeed.
would be a process of redemption.
Please read. I had to
So,
go. It's Sunday. I had to go back to church. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's put there in black and red and white.
wait. And then the redemption process, it could be done on paper, most definitely. It has its uses being done on paper, most definitely. But if this is an energetic system that we're operating in, and we're dealing with levels of energy that bring about levels of awareness, then for a person to be aware of what was taken from them, aware of what went on, would cause a change that didn't need them to speak directly or have physical contact with the enemy that caused them to believe otherwise.
No, absolutely, because everything is set up along the lines of a church. They would do it administerially. Some people use the word administrative, but that would just be like to demonstrate administerial authority. That's what administrative essentially means in so many words. So there's an administrative process or ministerial, because you're basically dealing with the same church that conquered the entire known world under the banner of being the universal church. So there really is no religion that is outside of their influence and or direct control.
Oh yeah, you can't be one of them and speak. You can't be a R. I'll just put it like you can't be an R.
Darn near be anything if you're not recognized by them. Even if you're an enemy, them acknowledging that you exist actually makes your existence relevant to them.
Is the Catholic Church the contractors? That's a question for y'all to discover on your own time. But
Maybe.
yeah,
Maybe
is the soul contractors.
How you get out of that contract?
By using your imagination and will to formulate something outside of it, because you never agreed to it in the first place.
So wasn't it the principality of light that was utilized in the role of the Stramenius Homo? And this is not a derogatory cut towards anyone in the LGBTQ. Homo means Homo sapien. It's short for man, right? So Stramenius Homo in the Latin would be a man of straw or a fictitious person that is basically only in existence through the act of either not legislation, that's a juridical person, but basically through a certified bond that was generated. So that person is only expressed in the form of that bond, but by name in lieu of the presence of the bond. So they can be spoken of even if the bond is not present, because it's a sound-alike name or item sonance to the natural living man's name, title, or attribution that was given to them by their mother and father, who later would become parents by the... Go ahead. Sorry.
So wait. When someone brings you before the court under this straw man,
Right,
fictitious
man of straw, correct.
Is your signature then empowering any judgments against this, being that you're the what do you call that, the living person? When you sign these contractual court agreements, are you then empowering them?
You're signing your nature over to them, therefore they can take on your exemption while sticking you with their liability. So you would want to offer an autograph. And
so that's the power in the name.
In the name, absolutely. The authority comes with the name. That's why even in marriage, you give the person your debt and your last name, unless you create a dynasty. Then it would be you give them your last name and a successful future of your progeny, those that you produced together as one. But the power is always in the name. That's why everyone wants the name. Side chicks don't get the name.
Shoot, as it stands, it looks like the empowerment for everything our governing body did then results from our energy, which further solidifies our position in this video that this is an energy-based system, and to can have control over your own energy and to formulate your own imagination in a clear thought process has the ability to overcome the authority of your enemy by discovering your own name or identity or authority.
Which is key in why Kamala Harris is playing this identity politics game. Even though I don't agree with the red side in some instances any more than I agree with the blue side, what I do recognize is that they're calling out is in the clear light of truth or clear light of creation. They're calling out the fact that she is using identity in the form of name to play a legal game. And I'm going to tell y'all this. If you haven't heard this before, you're going to say you heard it the first time here. You will never see a black president of the United States Corporation. Look up the codes noir.
They're not going to let Dick Gregory in there? They ain't going to let...
No, the computers, because Dick Gregory understood the principles of piezo-electricity and fasting, created enough pressure within the system for that electrical charge to positively promote his name to that vocation. But they used quickly another apparatus through a publication and one particular journalist to announce that he had in fact lost, which would have created a panic in the people. If he hadn't said that, it would have been a different reaction, but nonetheless, it would have been a little bit of instability. But if they had went and said, no, Brother Dick won fair and square, Mr. Nixon is not president, there could have been backlash and outward consequences, right? Like worse than January 6th, for example, but of that nature. Okay. So what they did was they went with the narrative line using their other branch of government that they call the media, that has very little limitation because they've been given the right to what? Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, right? And then there's very little regulation as it pertains to that. So if I was a private business owner or a corporate businessman and I wanted to promote my real opinions and I wanted to even prejudice aspects of society, and as long as I didn't go against some other rule that the government had and the government also was in agreement with that agenda, we would simply team up and there'd be no checks and balances for that. But I digress. I'll go back to identity politics, using a name. First, she's the first Asian, right? Senator, California, first Asian vice president, Southeast Asian. And I have nothing against Southeast Asians. I just want to say that for the record, or Asian people as a whole. But the term Asiatic in historical scientific books, lost your T. Oh, okay. Oh boy. Well, hopefully, he can pop back on before too long. But looks here. Yeah, but absolutely. Identity politics. And you're dealing with a title and a name that is pejorative in nature. We've come to accept it because of a lack of understanding. But when you deal with the codes noir and titles like black or white, these are statuses. They have nothing to do with your complexion either. So people who are so attached to loving the skin that they're in, but think that anyone who speaks against the nomenclature of blackness or whiteness has a problem with self-hate, I think they need to do some real self-assessing of their intelligence.
Man, how can you ever
evolution of thought? Because you cannot tell me what I hate when you don't even know who the hell you are. You think that you're a crayon. You think that your ancestors would be honored by being called the inclusion of all color by definition, and also being called other than a shade, right? Because black, white, and gray are shades. So you done forgot your primary color lessons from when you were in preschool and kindergarten. And it's just insane to me to hear the rhetoric in the back and forth. But I just had to say that. Kamala Harris is not black. Barack Obama identified with the black culture of the United States, as he stated. But we're dealing with people who are clearly have a nationality and are playing identity politics with real Americans and immigrants who are trying to make a better America. So I'm not, trying to side with anybody against anybody, but I want to point out the objective reality that's being skimmed over in the process of this political theater also that we're experiencing. And project your own reality. It's your birthright.
That's the summation of it. You can never go by somebody else's description of yourself, even if it's in a place that you may find appealing, like your house, your church, your school, your TV. You know what I mean? You still have more genetic information within you than will ever be available through any of these mediums. So make sure you use your imagination to create a world that you will to experience in.
Indeed. The power of thought, power of positive thinking, power of manifestation. It all begins with a thought, and the thought's desire in and of itself, in allowing you to be the one to bring it forth or come into being within your mind, the framework of your mind, it seeks to replicate itself. So when you start thinking good things, positive things, allow it to draw more of the same and stay in that. And don't let anybody pull you out of that.
Because it has to build in your battery, your bio battery. It has to build just like the other crap built. So give it some time.
Absolutely.
Give it the space between cause and effect. Give it the space between cause and effect, not time.
Absolutely. Don't be fooled by two wings of the same bird, y'all. I just want to let you know political theater is political theater. No matter what side or spectrum you have more agreements towards or with.
Officials are chosen and not elected. There's no way around that at this time. They're chosen and not elected.
Well, they're selected through the electoral college and process, which deals with that piezo-electricity that he and I shared with you. Get that understanding, get that wisdom, and know that your energy is what they need at the poles, right? At the poles. So, do what you want. I'm not here to influence you towards one place or side of the argument or the other. But just understand that your electromagnetic energy is being drawn to one or the other pole. Polarity.
So that you create their world and order and not your own.
And I just want to say this also. Remember that there's no legitimacy without your endorsement, whether it's your signature on a document or whether it's your opinion or ballot being cast. That's what they know. That Dick Gregory said it like this. I'm gonna just stick with facts. Dick Gregory said, when Roland Martin on Unfiltered asked him, what would you tell the black youth about this next election? He said, you're witnessing the last real election. The last legitimate president of the United States. Now, this was Dick Gregory. Last legitimate president. He said he's going to ride through on his big white horse like John Wayne. And he's going to parade through with pride. And he said, after that, you're not going to see no more real elections. So what did he know that we didn't when we were listening to the argument of saying, well, will he accept if he loses the next one, well, like you said, they're selected, right, T? So you don't think that the person that's going to be selected isn't told ahead of time? So did we cross memos? Because both sides are saying the other side cheated and somebody wasn't supposed to be and someone is now, and oh well, it's too late. But one definitely passed the office to another one without another person being deceased.
Dick Gregory
while trying to take another one out right in front of us. I mean,
Dick Gregory is the Arius of Libya of our day, in my opinion. I mean, something you can look up later on. But Dick Gregory's life is just gives me Arius of Libya very strongly. You know what I mean? On a lesser scale, you know what I'm saying? Less combative, more comedic genius. You know what I mean? But same working principle.
But you get what I'm saying, though, right? If he said, and then he passed, 3 years later or 2 years later? He chuckled at the host of Unfiltered. What would I tell him? It's over with. Quote, unquote. This is the last. Anyway, and at the same time, the information was coming forth that if we don't vote, there's no legitimacy. Because remember, if we know who we are and we go back into the ancestry and we go into the political theater and staging of the day of when certain things were written.
Wait a minute. Electric vote.
Yeah.
Man,
we weren't supposed to participate. That was for those who wanted to form a more perfect union. We had our confederacies, plural, and had our own methodologies of getting along and not getting along and getting it out and fighting it out and working it out. And then you had outsiders that came in and said, well, this is what we want to do. So, okay, well, you can do what you want to do on what you're leasing from us. But then they started setting up land banks and taking what was, I don't know what happened with the communication there. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for showing up. I hate to end it abruptly. Apparently, my co-host has to get going. I believe that he has other financial obligations. So, and I'm getting ready to tend to my family, and I appreciate you all for showing up. Enoch, thank you so much. Hopefully you'll subscribe. Oh, here he is. He's back. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for you guys, though. We both got to run, but we enjoy it every week. We're going to try to be more and more consistent, bringing you more live episodes. Thank you for joining us.
Be yourself. Express your inner wealth. Don't move in stealth. Be your source vibronic self so we can have some other options in this reality for our betterment. Resonate at your highest good in your right now moments. Peace, y'all.